What's up guys, Nathan here. While Path of Exile 2 is certainly getting the bulk of everyone's attention, patch 3.9 is just around the corner and is looking absurdly feature-rich in its own right. Not only is it your typical league, complete with new challenges, bosses, and power creep, but it also introduces the long-awaited continuation of Path of Exile's storyline via a sweeping endgame content update called Conquerors of the Atlas. So, what exactly is an endgame content update? Well, for the past 2 years, Path of Exile's endgame has essentially been the same thing, also known as the War for the Atlas. Lore-wise, we've basically been helping Zana chase Shaper through the Atlas, only to eventually fight both him and the Elder at the same time. I'm sure most of you are very familiar with this process by now. However, in Conquerors of the Atlas, this is no longer our objective. The new story is that, after defeating Shaper and Elder, a group of exiles continued to hunger for power. They kept returning to the map device over and over, slowly losing their sanity. Zana saw this and decided they needed to be sealed away. Now they're back, and it's up to us to fight for control of the Atlas. For those of you with limited experience in regards to Path of Exile's endgame, let me be the first to tell you. This is a big deal. Gone are the days of chasing Shaper around the Atlas, killing specific bosses on Elder-influenced maps, and trying to complete Zana's questline as quickly as possible. The new system is vastly different. For starters, the entire Atlas is initially white tier, and a large portion of the regular map selection won't even exist. Additionally, huge parts of the Atlas are sectioned off with borders that are themed around each of the new Conquerors. We don't know if these borders will change as you run maps, or if they're simply balancing tools that GGG can adjust on a league-by-league basis. What we do know is that these borders play a huge role in how you progress your Atlas. As you defeat Conquerors, you'll gain access to Watchstones, which you can socket into different regions. Your first Watchstone will add some maps and turn most of them yellow. Your second will add some more and turn most of them red. And your third will continue to increase the tiers of that region's contained maps. Chris Wilson also stated that there would be a fourth Watchstone slot, but he intentionally left its effects out of the presentation. The implications of this new system are massive. For one, it will allow you to segment off certain parts of the Atlas for different activities. The way Chris Wilson put it, it seems like you'll be able to have a dedicated section of the Atlas for running red maps, while still keeping a different section geared towards low-tier farming. Additionally, sextants are now applied to entire Watchstone regions, meaning you can potentially multi-sextant up over a dozen maps at the same time. For those of you more interested in bossing, 3.9 also brings 5 new ultimate bosses in the form of the Conquerors I mentioned earlier. We don't know how we'll encounter them, but Chris Wilson assured us that the fights are meant to be challenging and rewarding. Some of these rewards include new item influence, special exalted orbs for adding Conqueror-specific mods, and support gem pluses. These new support gems look insane, like Fork Plus causing your projectiles to fork twice, or Ancestral Call Plus hitting 3 targets and gaining increased range. To balance these crazy rewards, plus support gems will take an extremely long time to level up. As a final personal note about Conquerors of the Atlas, I'd like to add this. All the concrete information we've been given focuses only on 4 of the 5 Conquerors. There are 4 different borders on the new Atlas, 4 new Exalted Orbs, and 4 Watchstone slots. All we know about the 5th Conqueror is that he seems to be fond of this dark red aura, which appears both when the map device seal is broken and as the trailer fades out at the end. It may be a bit too early to call, but I think we have a new boss encounter on our hands that's going to put Uber Elder to shame. But wait, there's more. While 3.9 does indeed bring huge changes to Path of Exile's endgame, that's just another game-wide update. This means that we also get to look forward to a new challenge league, Metamorphosis. The mechanic you'll be contending with in Metamorphosis works as follows. Monsters will drop flesh samples labeled with certain skills they use. Once you've acquired enough of these samples, you can combine them into this weird chemical tank to create a custom encounter. As you progress deeper into the endgame, you'll be able to get samples from map bosses, which can ultimately lead to some pretty nasty fights. The trade-off is that challenging samples will also be more rewarding, which should ultimately lead to some pretty interesting risk versus reward gameplay. Obviously, this footage isn't final, but let's take a look at the specific encounter that Chris showed off. First, we can see the Metamorph using the Vol Oversoul laser, which can hit pretty hard. It then goes into Act 9 boss ad summoning, a Calm Leap Slam, and a Dominus melee swing. This rotation continues at a rapid pace until the monster dies, at which point we see an absurd loot explosion. At current league prices, this is easily around 50 chaos worth of drops. thanks mostly to the Ancient Orb, of course. Along with this recent trend of diverse yet recognizable rewards, Metamorphosis is introducing a new currency item called Catalysts, which are used to modify the quality of jewelry. The catch is that they come in about a dozen different flavors that each grant quality to different kinds of stats. For example, you could have a 20% quality belt that increases the amount of life or resistances granted by said belt, but not both. Jewelry quality will also allow you to increase the tendency of an item to roll certain mods at the expense of losing some of that quality stat every time you craft on said item. The example Chris gave was a ring with 20% elemental resistance quality will make using an exalted orb on that ring extremely likely to add an elemental resistance mod. I know this sounds complicated, and it kind of is if you aren't super familiar with crafting in Path of Exile, but I promise it will make a lot more sense when the League comes out and you start using these catalysts on your gear. The last update coming in 3.9 isn't so much content related, but I figured I'd include it anyway. All bow skills are being rebalanced, new ranged attack totems are being added, and most importantly, Tornado Shot is being nerfed. Personally, I've never been a huge fan of bow builds, but we did get to see a couple of new support gems that I'm pretty excited for. Barrage support causes the projectiles fired by your attack to be fired in a sequence, effectively allowing you to turn any multi-projectile wand or bow skill into a single target monster. Aeronova support adds additional projectiles and causes bow attacks to hit a single location, firing out said projectiles in an evenly incremented area of effect. Chris seemed to think this would best jive with skills that apply secondary AoEs, such as Caustic Arrow, but I personally think this support looks a bit awkward in the demonstrations. Maybe adding a half a dozen more projectiles will fix this, but we'll have to wait and see. Anyway guys, that's about all the info I have on 3.9. I did try to keep this video brief and informational, but if long-form opinions are more your thing, be sure to keep an eye out for my upcoming ExileCon reaction and analysis video. Thanks for watching, this has been Nathan, and I'll catch you next time.
Thank you!
A quick shout out and thank you to my awesome Patreon supporters, Real Human, Zikarak, Squally, Zoljan, Coda, Julia Allen, Kepler, Sparky Cata, Fusk, Putzak, Heiser801, Kyle, Ice Dude, Ginzik Anonymous, and Orangita. Thank you guys so much for supporting me. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. If anyone else is interested in joining these awesome people over at my Patreon, you can check me out at patreon.com/NathanBrotherBob. I also stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at twitch.tv/NathanBrotherBob, usually just playing Path of Exile, but, you know, probably other things while I wait for 3.9 to come out, honestly, at this point. And if you want to join my Discord, you can also contact me directly there, and that's the URL in the corner. I'm not going to try to say that because I would never do it correctly, knowing me. But yeah, that's that. Thank you guys for watching my video and maybe checking out my Patreon or my Twitch or my Discord. Any of those would be great. Yep. Have a good one.